Do I have to forget in order to forgive? Forgiveness is a very hard thing to do, probably one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. And many people say, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget because they want to hold on to the feelings that they have to protect themselves. And listen, that's very honest, that's very human. But what does the Bible say about how we go about the process of forgiving? Let's take a look. If we go to the word, we see in Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 through 22, Peter says to Jesus, Lord, how many times do I have to forgive my brother if he sinned against me? 7 times? 7 is the number of completion, number of perfection. Jesus says, no, not 7 times, but 77 times. I'm stacking a 7 on top of the 7. I want it perfectly complete. That means you got to forgive him all the time, every time. What if he does this? Every time. What if he does that? Every time. And forgiveness is hard. It's difficult. But we've got to do it. Why? Because Jesus said so. Because God says we've got to forgive. And he taught us in the model prayer, Father, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We got to forgive because we got to be forgiven. So that brings me to one of my first R's. Forgiveness is hard, but it requires remembering. It requires remembering that you need forgiving. Listen, forgiveness is a difficult thing. It's designed to unburden you, to free you up so that you can live beyond the hurt, beyond the grievance, beyond the injury. Forgiveness is a decision that you make, not a process that you complete. And a little later, we'll talk about what is the process. But forgiveness is a decision. You make a decision to forgive. And we'll talk about what the process is. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation or reinstatement. So I want to clear that up. Forgiveness is not the same thing as reconciliation or reinstatement. And forgiveness requires that you remember that you are a sinner, that you need forgiveness. That if you, who have offended a holy and perfect God, and want him to forgive you, then you've got to also forgive the person who's just as unrighteous and unperfect and unholy as you are. I know unperfect is not a word. They're just like you are. Jesus told a parable. This is a man who owed a great debt. And he went to his Lord. He said, please, please forgive my debt. He said, listen, go ahead. You owe me 10 million racks. I'm not even going to ask you for that. Go ahead. Live. And then that man, when I was, thank you, went outside and ran into a dude who owed him $2. He beat the dude up, threw the dude in jail. Give him my $2. If you've had a debt forgiven, then you got to forgive. Now, what is the definition of forgive? I'm glad you asked. It's to grant a pardon for or remission of an offense, a debt, etc. To absolve. To grant a pardon for or remission of an offense or a debt. So if someone's done that for you, my God, you got to turn around and do that for someone else. So you got to remember that you are a sinner. But you also have to release the hurt, the pain, the feelings associated with it so that you don't relive it. Here's why many of us get stuck in the hurts and the wounds of our past. It's because we won't release them. Because we attach forgiveness with forgetting. And I ain't gonna never forget what so-and-so did. And then, man, to the day I die, I ain't gonna never let that go. But you're carrying that brick around. And that person is out living life. And you walking around with a brick from 1979 about what they did to you. You've got to release it so you don't relive it. Then you also got to recalibrate. You got to put yourself on a different course. You got to look at the road you're on and get yourself back together. So you don't retrace the steps that led to the offense or the grievance in the first place. Now, that recalibration, that release, that may take some time. That may be a process, but that process is kicked off with the decision to forgive. So, forgiveness requires remembering, releasing, and recalibrating. It does not require repentance. And I know that's going to seem wild to you. Forgiveness does not require repentance. Repentance means to change your way of thinking and then to act in a way congruent with that new way of thinking. And that's the full version of repentance. So it's much more than saying I'm sorry. It's being sorry, doing sorry, living sorry. All right? Forgiveness doesn't require that. Because forgiveness unburdens you. It has nothing to do with that other person. You can forgive if someone hasn't repented. Forgiveness doesn't require reinstatement. If I forgive you, I don't have to allow you back into the space to hurt me again. I just have to let it go. And sometimes forgiving you means I got to stay far from you. Now, I know you're tripping. You're kind of like, hey, so what's up with the reinstatement? What's up with the repentance? That's reconciliation. So forgiveness doesn't require repentance or reparations, but reconciliation does. If you want to reconcile, so you have grieved me, we are here. I can forgive you while you're way over there. And we may just stay way over there. And we just live life way over there. But if you want to reconcile, then there must be repentance and there must be reparations. In order to reconcile, in order to be reinstated, there must be repentance and reparations. So you're going to have to come and we're going to have the hard conversation. You're going to have to do more than say, I'm sorry. You're going to have to live and show that you have changed your way of thinking. And then you're going to have to do something to make it right. That's what reparations are. You do something now for something that was done in the past. Many times we conflate forgiveness and reconciliation. Forgiveness is all on me. Lord, help me to forgive. Reconciliation, nah, cousin. We got to talk. We got to work that out. We have to see if it's reconcilable. Because some offenses, some grievances, some acts just mean that we can't rock together. We just got to be here. And that's got to be okay. We should always try to reconcile, though. Our goal should always be to reconcile. God desires that we reconcile with one another because he reconciled himself to us through the death of Jesus Christ on the cross. He desires that we reconcile ourselves one to another. He says in Romans chapter 12, verse 18, if at all possible, if it's at all possible with you, live peaceably with all men. Listen, if you can help it, man, get along with people. But we're not going to be able to get along if we don't get to the heart of what got us here. That requires repentance and reparations. So forgiveness is hard. Do you have to forget? You don't have to forget what happens. You do have to release how you feel about what happens. As a matter of fact, you need to remember that you need forgiveness. You need to release how you feel about what happened so you don't relive it. You need to recalibrate yourself. You also need to understand the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Reconciliation requires repentance and reparations. Forgiveness doesn't. Forgiveness is a decision that you make. The process of reconciliation may take a while, but forgiveness is a decision that you make. Because your Father in heaven has forgiven you, how can we not forgive other people?